Hello and welcome to Video Game Hangover. I'm Randy Dickinson and I'm in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, I am DJ Ross. I am in Mountain View, California.
Each week here on Video Game Hangover, we talk about the games that have been keeping us up at night. This week, that list includes Lumbearjack. It's maybe the first time I've said it out loud, and it does not roll off the tongue. Yeah, Lumbearjack.
Lumbearjack.
Yep. Cloud Gardens and Jumping Flash.
Excellent. What a good lineup this week.
Yeah, you're not talking about the late 80s Whoopi Goldberg action comedy Jumping Jack Flash.
No, this is the prequel.
No, I'm disappointed.
Yeah, well, I'll talk about that next week. We'll do a whole Whoopi Goldberg-centered episode. Be terrific.
Excellent. Cool. I got Ghost. I'm ready to go on Ghost at all times.
With the movie or the Ghost, the official video game of the movie?
Was there a video game of Ghost, or did you speak of?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I hope there was.
Pottery Simulator.
How many times have you been able to play as Patrick Swayze in a video game? That's what a question I want to know the answer to.
I don't know. You would think there'd be a Roadhouse movie, a video game somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, that would be the number one. You just
That'd be
like tearing people's throats out or whatever.
Roadhouse.
It'd be so exciting. You're like on the last level, you finally unlock that, the throat rip or, like, finally.
Yep. The music comes up, you do a little dance. Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Oh, man.
So, yeah. All right. We've somehow, I know how, I am not surprised I did it, but just segued into a weird free association of 80s movies.
Well, now I'm wishing it was next week already, so we can talk about the Roadhouse game.
Really? Let's get on that.
Gotta stay focused, stay in this week, though. So that brings me to my question for this week, which is, how are you enjoying E3 this year?
I'm enjoying it more than I have in previous years, honestly.
Oh, wait a minute. Well, it's supposed to be a trick question because there is no E3 this week.
Right. That's why I'm enjoying it so much.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you put it that way, then yeah, maybe the best E3 in memory.
Yeah. The whole summer game thing, there was a Wholesome Games Direct. I think, other entities have swooped in to, fill the place to satisfy everyone's need for video game trailers at full volume.
Yeah, I have to say, I barely even noticed until somebody pointed out to me. I did realize, Sony's doing a thing, and there are all these other shows. Oh, it's because this is what E3 would normally be. That's why this is all happening. Yeah.
But no Nintendo thing. Nintendo is strangely quiet.
No, Nintendo said they were going to do, I mean, I don't know if they're going to do a big thing, but it seems like they have all these little mini directs happening, right? So they're like a Xenoblade. Xeno
whatever.
Yeah.
I had not heard that. No, I didn't know. I thought there was no Nintendo thing.
I don't know. I mean, Nintendo plays by their own rules, so
it's true. Yeah.
Leave it to them.
Yeah. I mean, Nintendo was not participating in E3 well before it was cool.
Right.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Everybody took a while to get on the same page as them.
Right. one of the few places where Nintendo was a trendsetter. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm not hurting for video game content this month. I do miss sort of like the routine, the pageantry of taking a couple of vacation days to sit in front of my computer and watch press conferences all day.
Oh man. Yeah. I never got that into it.
No.
I mean, let me tell you, it's easier to take those in during the workday when everybody's working from home. But I wouldn't really go out of my way to accomplish that.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I enjoyed it. It was fun. But yeah, no, so it's fine. Yeah, I'm okay with it. Jeff Keighley is there to take care of us.
Jeff Keighley is there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I like the Wholesome Direct. That was like 2 Saturdays ago. I think that's well, I know for a fact that the entirety of that is streaming on YouTube. If anyone's interested, it's a bunch of just cute, friendly, wholesome games.
Yeah,
You
a bunch of games
you're
about
a bear
witches in the forest.
a cute witch, or you're doing some light gardening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like they need to tune it back away from the wholesome end of the spectrum for those things. I mean, I get it. There's a place for all those wholesome games, but
Yeah.
at what point does it just get too saccharine?
Yeah. There were a few that were very there were other. I mean, there's definitely themes emerge where you see enough of these trailers back to back during the Wholesome Direct, and you're like, oh, cute witches are in this year. Gardening continues to be in. Yeah, you see the trends.
Gardening continues to be in.
Yeah, but every now and then there's something that pops up, particularly in this most recent Wholesome Direct, that feels like a little bit more of a puzzle game, or maybe has an exploration element to it with a little bit of light combat. And I was like, ooh, we're just on the verge of being unwholesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it was cute. It was satisfying. That's about the speed at which I'm sort of consuming video games at this point. So
yeah.
The occasional Marvel or Star Wars thing notwithstanding.
Right. I know you can't wait for whatever's happening next with the Avengers.
Yeah, right. I have not gone full Avengers, but yeah.
Although we don't really know, because they got Square Enix kind of jettisoned that whole division.
I didn't even know that. So
oh, you didn't hear about that? They sold off their kind of Western studios. So formerly Eidos, and who's the other one? Crystal Dynamics, I think. Crystal
Dynamics, yeah. See, I had heard that headline, or read that headline in relation to Tomb Raider and being sold off, and what did Eidos do? Did the Deus Ex games being sold off?
Yeah,
yeah, and yeah, a new Tomb Raider had been previously announced, so presumably that is now being funded and developed elsewhere. But Deus Ex has kind of been on ice for a while now, and cautiously optimistic that whoever got the rights to that maybe will spin up a new one for us.
There's plenty of Deus Ex games already. I don't know.
There's plenty of Final Fantasy games already, TJ.
It's true, but they're all very different from each other.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Well, okay.
Do you want to do this?
How many Final Fantasy games have you played? Remind me.
All of them. Every single
all
one
of them. Okay, yeah, I forgot. I'm talking to the just the authority.
I played a couple you've never even heard of.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, they only came out in Harrisburg. That's why you don't know.
Oh man, I remember those dark times. We were like, man, I wish they would bring those outside of Japan and Harrisburg for those of us who don't live in one of those two places.
People were sharing them on the internet. No, well, before the internet, on message boards, and just handing off a floppy disk. You'd meet some guy at a Quiznos, and he would hand you a floppy disk with a secret Final Fantasy game on it that DJ Ross has never heard of.
That is an incredibly 90s thing to do. Just meet up at a Quiznos. So I don't know. I feel like the story holds water.
Everything here checks out. Yeah. I was racking my brain as I was telling that bullshit story, trying to go, what is the most 90s restaurant I can think of right now? Is Quiznos 90s? Yeah. That's more like early 2000s, right?
Oh, I think it's late 90s, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I think you would be like, after, I pick up my illicit Harrisburg exclusive Final Fantasy game at the Quiznos, we're going next door to like Color Me Mine or something.
Right. We'll pop over to the Shoney's.
I don't know what that is.
It was like a buffet restaurant, I think, in the
okay.
Yeah. Definitely a 90s thing.
As long as we're just making stuff up, I'll allow it.
just saying words.
Oh, well.
You've never heard of Shoney's? It's the secret restaurant inside the Final Fantasy game that I was talking about before.
Stop it. Should have gone with like Sid's or something, and then I'd be like, oh, that checks out.
See, I don't know what that is either.
Aha.
Oh, yeah. We're getting a little too regional now, I think.
Mr. Guy who has played every Final Fantasy game.
Oh, is that a restaurant in Final Fantasy? Yeah, see.
No, let's just leave it right there.
I failed the test.
I fell into my trap.
Yep. Hoisted on my own petard.
How do we start talking about this?
I don't know. I have no idea. Would you like to talk about some of the video games we've been playing recently? Real video games, not
Yeah,
fake ones.
well, let's talk about some of the fake ones we've been playing.
So Lumbearjack. Let's start with that. That's a weird word. Continues to be a word.
Can you explain what is going on with that title for people who are not reading this off a page?
Sure.
I feel like it doesn't totally come across.
It's Lumberjack with the word bear in the middle.
Okay, yeah, that's about it.
Okay, so in the game, it's a cute little cartoony kind of adventure game where you're a bear who is also a lumberjack, hence the title. And you're enjoying a nice relaxing day in the woods when an evil corporation comes in with a ton of strange machinery, pumping smoke into the air, knocking down trees, and displacing all of your little woodland friends. As an eco-minded lumberjack, you pull out your axe and go to town on the machinery and the giant buildings and what's the other word I'm looking for? Like dump trucks and backhoes and things like that these evil corporations have rolled into your woods. So you run from scenario to scenario, a little corner of the woods to the next corner of the woods, and axe away at evil, horrible, toxic fume pumping machinery. Yeah. And sort of basically reclaim the wood. So you'll find a refinery or some kind of, vaguely non-specific type of machinery with a lot of moving parts and black smoke.
Something with a bunch of smokestacks, basically.
Yeah. Well, you don't really get a sense of like what is the crux of or the objective, I guess, of the evil corporation moving into the woods. They don't have like an oil company logo on their name. They're not, strip mining or logging or fracking or anything sort of specifically evil. It's just sort of a general evil.
General evil, yeah.
Evil, yeah. And yeah, so you move into each little scenario with your axe and start hammering away at, barrels and what else? Small pieces of machinery, generators, things like that, until you collect enough little broken up pieces of those things that you can use them to upgrade your axe into an even more powerful axe. And then you can lay into the heavy machinery. You can lay into the dump trucks and the plows and the things like that. And again, collect more pieces, upgrade your axe one more time. And now you have the super mighty axe and you can just hammer away at giant buildings and skyscrapers and things like that.
Wait. See, you're chopping away. If you're hammering,
chopping away.
That's a different tool.
Excuse me. Yes, chopping away. Correct. Yeah. So, and then the scenario starts over and over again. So you finish that scene. There's 3 little sort of like checklist items that you're trying to do. You have to sort of like, banish all machinery and signs of the evil corporation. When you do that, like, green pops up, flowers pop up, little, rivers flow again, little beavers build dams. All of your woodland friends move back into the area. There are also sort of like hidden kind of employees of the corporation, usually in, hard hats or suits. And you have to find them and you slap them in the face.
Oh, okay. I was wondering where that was going. I was like,
you don't take your axe to them. It's not that kind of game.
Okay. I was gonna be perfectly satisfied if you just like did a scary bear face at them or something. But
that'd be great too.
That you actually just slap them. That's good.
Yeah, you find them and you do like a little backhanded slap, and there's a fun little audio too in the game that's a little slap. And they turn from being kind of an evil suited corporate person to a little hippie who's dancing in a field of flowers. So they apparently in some way sort of atone for their evil ways and become tree huggers.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that's how it
absolutely
happens.
That's exactly how it goes, right? Yes, we've seen it play out so many times. And what's the third item? I forget what the third item is. I just played this game. But there's 3 things, basically 3 objectives in every single one of these scenarios that you have to sort of get little check marks on. And then you move on to the next one. So you're basically trying to 100% this thing. Unfortunately, it's super cute. It's kind of funny. I get what they're going for from a message standpoint. It looks kind of cartoony and fun. The bear has a bunch of different little costumes every time he meets one of his little woodland friends and completes one of their objectives. They give him a funny new little outfit to wear, and you can change those throughout the course of the game.
Excellent.
But it's a lot of the same stuff over and over again. Like the upgrading the axe just makes the axe bigger. It doesn't really like change the look of it, change the functionality of it. At some point, you get a chainsaw, and I was like, here's where it turns into a horror movie. This is going to be great. And then you walk up to, the next thing that you want to axe away at, or chainsaw away at with your chainsaw. And it's not a scene where he like revs up the motor and chainsaws it like Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War. It's he just basically chops away at it like he's got an axe.
But he doesn't even turn it on.
He doesn't even turn it on. No, he just sort of chops with it. So it's a little undercooked, a little underbaked, I think. Yeah. So it was that over and over and over again until you get to sort of like the evil headquarters at the end and, basically reclaim the woods from this monster corporation. And then the credits roll, and it's just sort of like a cute little bite size, couple hours long, little fun adventure game where you do a lot of eco-terrorism.
Yeah. What kind of is this like a top-down kind of thing? Or is this a first-person Lumberjack game?
No, it's like a third-person kind of isometric little thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you have an overworld map where you're going from objective to objective, and you kind of walk your little bear along, and then you hit the icon for the next little stop in the woods, and it turns into kind of a little diorama that you can kind of zoom in on and pan around in, and you have a little control over your bear, and he goes from thing to thing. He gets fun little machines and stuff like that. You get like a little like a claw machine you can control, or a giant crane, and you use it to kind of move around pieces and basically sabotage all of the machinery and stuff like that. So there's a few little places where they mix it up with some new ideas. There's a fun little like mini game that pops up every now and then where some of your little gopher friends somehow have gotten their hands on, little cartoony bombs, like the black ball with a little wick sticking out of it. And they will push it up from a little gopher hole in the ground. And your lumberjack does a little spin and turns into a golfer. And his axe becomes a golf club, and you basically tee up and shoot the little bomb into the office building full of evil corporate peons, or into the heavy machinery that's knocking down the trees in your woods and stuff like that. And those are fun little mini games that kind of pop up, and you get, you can't fail out of these things. There's no, radius damage. I had bombs go off in my face and I was fine. So I was like, oh, it's that kind of game. It's just meant to be just sort of leisurely consumed. It's not really, you're not going for high strategy or anything like that. But yeah, it was cute. It was fun. I don't know. I'm not sure even how this sort of landed on my radar. I remember seeing the trailer for it during some presentation, and it just kind of looked cute and funny. And I was like, oh, I wonder how this game sort of handles having an ecological perspective on a bear trying to reclaim the woods. And it's light. It's pretty saccharine. It doesn't really go for anything too aggressive from a messaging standpoint. But it was an enjoyable little distraction for a little while.
They don't pull you aside after every level and just, do a little 5-minute educational segment on how you can help save the forests.
Yeah, no, you don't get like a inspired by a true story kind of like, after school special kind of vibe to it at all. No, it's
that's what I want. I just want the bear standing in front of the camera, just telling you to not to litter or whatever.
Yeah. I think this would be fun, like if I had little kids around, because it doesn't put up a very significant challenge. There's no fail states or anything like that. You really can kind of hammer through it pretty easily, and everything is sort of presented kind of with a fun kind of goofy air to it. The evil corporation is menacing in a very sort of Saturday morning cartoon, mustache twisting kind of way. So it's I think it would be, just a light, fun, family friendly thing to consume. And maybe get a little ecological, love your animal friends kind of message into the heads of your little kid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. That sounds, very appropriately wholesome.
Yeah, fairly wholesome. Yeah. Maybe it was the Wholesome Games Direct where I did learn about this, because it is very much of that stripe. But yeah, so this is called Lumbearjack. Again, Lumberjack with the word bear in the middle. And I played it on the Switch. It's cute. It's kind of fun. It's very light. It's over very fast. It's maybe 2 hours long.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I was a little surprised actually when it ended, because I was like, "Oh, are we gonna, move to the big city? Are we gonna, are we moving into some like
to the evil corporation?"
Right, exactly. Are we gonna start working our way up the corporate ladder? Nope. Credits roll. Game over. Congratulations. If you'd like to go back and get any of the objectives that you missed, you're welcome to. But this is the entire game, and I was like, "Oh, well, that certainly did not outstay its welcome."
Well, that's good too.
Yeah, that's a plus. Absolutely. These are compliments.
They could do one of those sequels that kind of takes a right turn, where it is the bear going to the corporate headquarters with an axe and just, slaughtering everybody in the building.
Just going full American Psycho on everyone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I had fun with it. It's cute. It's not obscenely challenging. A nice little diversion, a little toy to play with for a little while, and it's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Maybe I will check it out if I need, I don't know. It's like if I need a game where I play as a bear. I was like, don't know if I'm like hurting for those, but it has been a while since I played something like that.
There's also during the Wholesome Direct this past week, there was a trailer shown for a game called Bear and Breakfast, which is coming out later this year. I think it comes out in August, where you are, hold on to your hats, a bear who runs a B&B. And you have guests who come to your B&B, who go camping out into the woods and have specific demands about how their room and their cabin should be laid out and things like that. So you have to cater to all their needs. You have to sort of, I don't know, what is it, like a hospital simulator or a theme park simulator kind of thing, where you're basically trying to run a B&B, but you're a bear. And it looks super cute. I was like, that's a game I would play. That looks like fun to me. So maybe bears are one of those themes this year. We have cute witches, gardening, and video games with cute bears in them.
I was gonna say, I don't know how much say you have in the layout of the B&B if you're just staying at one. I always imagine it as like, you just go there and it's more or less a hotel. It's like set up for you already.
Yeah. This is a video game, DJ.
Sure, but I'm just saying
it's not a real B&B.
Don't know what the animal's expectations are.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. It was just one of those things they showed in the trailer where you can kind of get, different sets of furniture and bedspreads and little end tables with vases on them and stuff like that. And they showed a little scenario where you had a grid and you were dropping furniture onto it, and it looked very much like a Happy Home Academy or like an Animal Crossing where you were trying to design your house. And I was like, oh, I get where you're going for here.
Okay, so maybe you're setting stuff up with the goal of attracting more customers, as opposed to animals coming down after they spent the night and they're just like, I wish there was a different style bed in here.
I would like a floral duvet. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely got the impression from the trailer that it was sort of like the expectations of your guests. You were trying to sort of decorate it to their their demands, but it's a game that's still 4 months away, and I've not played it yet. So,
All right,
no, 2 months. 2 months. August is almost 2 months away. Yeah,
it's frightening how that works.
So yeah, I'm gonna play all the bear games this year.
Okay, all right, I'm gonna hold you to that. See how many more bear games come out.
I need a bear game where the bear plays golf. Oh, this was kind of this. This was kind of Lumbearjack.
Yeah, play golf in that. It sounds like he did.
Because I play all the golf games too, apparently. So just bring all of those things together.
There must have been I don't know. I was going to say there must have been a game where a bear played golf, but I don't know what I'm basing that on. By the end of the year, surely.
No, undoubtedly, yes. Yeah, these things have a way of melding into each other. You're a bear who's a witch who tends a garden and plays golf.
There we go. Yeah.
Yep.
All I can think of while you've been talking about this is I do Duolingo every day, and one of the little cartoon characters in that who gives you sentences to translate is this very like surly looking cartoon bear.
Oh, really?
All the other characters are humans, but then there's this bear. And I don't know if it's because he actually is surly or that's just how they decided to draw him. It's very strange, but I was just imagining him putting on like, the little lumberjack cap and picking up his axe and going to town on all these corporate invaders.
Maybe we'll have to Google them. I'll see what the if there's a comparison to be made. I mean, a bear's a bear, right?
Well, I don't know. It depends how much time you spend around bears, maybe.
Grizzly bear, panda bear.
Sure, you're practically identical.
There's the whole bear gay subculture thing.
Yeah, this is, I mean, to be clear, this was not that in this
Not
game.
that, no. Also, the game that I played, Lumbearjack, is also not that, just to be clear.
Oh, no, that is what I meant. It's not, a bear giving you lessons in different languages in Duolingo, although that would be very entertaining.
I have no appropriate comments. The wheels were turning and I had a bunch of things that I was going to say and none of them are family friendly. So we'll just move on to the next
moving
topic.
on. Moving on. I played a game that did not have a bear in it, although it did have a rabbit or something that at least looked like a rabbit. I played Jumping Flash, which is a very old PlayStation 1 game.
Oh.
But the reason I was playing this is because it's part of the new PlayStation 1 Classics lineup on PlayStation. They just overhauled the whole PlayStation Plus thing. And that whole process is very confusing. And I'm not going to get into it, but at least part of it was they put up all these old PlayStation 1 games on the store. And you can buy some of them.
Oh.
I don't know how much closely you've been following this PS Plus situation, but it's a nightmare.
Like you said, I'm super confused by it, so I've mostly just chosen not to engage.
Yeah. No, it's typical Sony. It's what you expect.
Yeah. There was a trailer and they broke it down in some way that seemed very unnecessarily complicated. And I was basically left wondering, is this going to cost me more money? Do I need to spend more? And then I checked my PlayStation Plus account, and I'm covered. I basically have a paid account through 2026 or something like that.
Cool.
So I'm like, I'm not going to touch anything until 2026.
Yeah,
PlayStation, you let me know when it's time to do a thing.
I've been trying to keep up with it a little bit. If only because it seems like they keep shooting themselves in the foot. Like, there are a lot of other people in your situation where they had prepaid for a few years.
Yeah.
But then they keep introducing, as part of this, they added a couple, more premium tiers on top of it. And there was a window of time where it seemed like anybody who had prepaid was then going to be charged more for, the extra tiers of their subscription. I was like, oh, wow. I wonder if that's even legal. But I think they walked that back, and maybe they figured out that it would get them into trouble or something. But either way, just, another incredible PR move from Sony.
Yeah.
But Jumping Flash is an old PS1 game. I was going through this catalog of the games that they put up on there, and I was just trying to figure out, kind of interested how this even works on PS4, because up until this point, you haven't really been able to play PS1 games on PS4. And I was just going through this list trying to figure out if there's anything interesting. And let me tell you, the list itself, there are some standouts, but it is, if you're launching a whole new service that are supposed to get people excited to subscribe to, probably could have picked a stronger lineup of stuff. You'll be pleased. I think Siphon Filter is on there. Resident Evil 1 made a last-minute appearance. I mean, there are a lot of, kind of typical classic Sony things on here, like Ape Escape and Hot Shots Golf. Parappa the Rapper is not on here, although there's a remake of that out, right? So you probably should just play that. But it's not the most enticing list. A few of them you actually need to subscribe to this thing to get access to, like Resident Evil. I don't think you can just buy outright, which is disappointing because I wanted to do that, but I had to settle for Jumping Flash. And I don't mean to disparage Jumping Flash because it's actually a lot of fun, but it's just which of these games is it going to let me buy and check out without subscribing to this thing?
Yeah. And I mean, arguably, Jumping Flash doesn't have the same name recognition, brand recognition as, Resident Evil.
Yeah, no, it's not quite Resident Evil. We're not on the 8th installment of Jumping Flash in full VR and all that stuff. But anyway, so a little bit of background on Jumping Flash. I was fairly certain that this was a launch game for PS1. And to my great dismay, it was actually, I was having a very difficult time verifying this before the show, because there are some people who are like, oh yeah, it was a launch game. But then I found some articles that grouped it in with like, oh yeah, one of those, classic PlayStation launch games with, along with Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy VII, which were absolutely not launch games. So now I don't know what to think. But
well, I mean, a video game launch or console launch was a different concept at that point. It wasn't a thing where like, everybody in the free world got it on the same day and all the video games, came out with it on the day of release. It was this nebulous thing that if you could get one, you were lucky, and maybe it would be somewhere near launch, but probably was not going to be on the same day as all of your friends. And that changed, I think, with the... Geez, what was the first one I remember? Was probably the Dreamcast was the first one I remember, like friends kind of camping out.
Waiting out for it, yeah.
Yeah, had to get the console and a bunch of games on the same day, because that was the first day that you could do both of those things. And I don't remember that being part of being a video game fan prior to the Dreamcast.
Oh, but I feel like launch game is pretty indisputable. It's like, what games were there when the console came out? And I was pretty sure Jumping Flash was one of them. But anyway, that's not critical.
Right.
To understanding this game.
If you're putting out a console, you got to put out some games, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is one of the first games I remember being available for PS1. It came out in some point in 1995. And I did not have a PS1 during the first year or so when it was out, so I would rely on, some of my friends would have one, and we'd go over to their house, and they'd have this demo disc, which had stuff like, I think it was like Ace Combat 1, and Street Fighter Alpha, I think, and then Jumping Flash. And everybody at the time was just so blown away by, like, all the other stuff on this demo disc that was not Jumping Flash. Because, like, PlayStation was a pretty huge upgrade over the Super Nintendo, so, it was amazing to have stuff like Street Fighter Alpha, and probably Ridge Racer was on there. Just being able to check out these games. And in comparison, Jumping Flash had kind of, like, I feel like kind of a kiddie feel to it. Because the main character is this big cartoon robot rabbit thing. And the music is not quite Ridge Racer or Ace Combat. But what's really interesting about it is essentially a first-person shooter where you play as this rabbit, and it's like in full 3D. And this was in 1995, so like when did Quake come out? I don't think that was out until like maybe a year or two later.
Yeah, I think Quake was 97 or 98, wasn't it?
Yeah. And then just having this on a console, it was kind of amazing. So it's in first person. And maybe I should set up the premise of this, because the premise is also just sort of classic mid-90s Japanese video game. So there's this evil character, he's like a scientist named Baron Aloha, who has decided to basically steal just big chunks of the planet. He just like rips them out of the ground and flies them away into space. And I forget what his master plan is. I think he's trying to turn them all into like hotels or like these fancy resorts or something. So they call upon this robot rabbit, whose name is Robert, to go and reclaim these pieces of the planet from Baron Aloha. So you jump into this rabbit thing, and then at that point you're basically just playing a first person. It's like half and half shooting and 3D platforming, because there are enemies around in each of these maps that you have to shoot at. But a lot of the game is you go around these maps, and you have to prevent Baron Aloha from being able to capture these things. And by doing that, you have to collect 4, what are they called? So they call them jet pods in each level. Although they're clearly just big carrots, so I don't know what the deal is with that. But anyway, you go around and try to collect these things like, they're the big coin in every Super Mario Brothers level. And a lot of the time they're a little bit out of the way, and they'll be like on top of buildings or at the end of some long series of platforms up in the sky. So a lot of it's like much more platforming than a typical first-person shooter is, or at least these days. These days, you just think you're running down a corridor or something and, reliving an action movie or something like that. Mm-hmm. But I was surprised playing this game again, just how much of it was sort of like you look up in the air and go, oh, there's a jet pod. How do I get up there? And then you sort of look around at the environment and go, oh, okay, so if I can just get to this building, I can probably jump to the jet pod from there. How do I get up there? And you kind of work backwards from wherever you see the objective and just try and figure out how to physically move yourself up there. Mm-hmm. And that part of it is actually pretty fun. It's weird. I feel like you just don't typically do a lot of platforming in a first-person game because it tends to be a little awkward. Like, one of the most common complaints is you can't really see your feet or where you're standing. So it's kind of hard to do all these precision jumps if you don't really know exactly where you're going to land.
Right.
But Jumping Flash is a really cool solution to that, which is you jump, and the first time you jump, it's sort of your typical just any jump in a first-person shooter. But then you can double jump, and what happens when you double jump is, first of all, you just jump way, way higher into the air. But also the camera pans down towards the ground, and you just see your shadow. And then from there, it's super easy to just line up wherever you're going to land. So I was like, oh, okay, that's surprisingly ingenious solution. Yeah. So at that point, it's fairly trivial making all these precision jumps and everything, which means it's not a nightmare to do all this platforming.
Well, good. Yeah, the I forget at what point the advent of like a first-person platformer where you can look down and see your weird little like legs and feet.
Yeah,
yeah. It never quite feels right in a video game.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, whenever I walk into an area in a first-person game and it's clear that there's going to be some some jump puzzles I need to do, I'm just like, ugh, this could go one of two ways. It's probably not going to be good. But anyway, so I was very pleased with just how you end up doing all these, handling all these jumps in Jumping Flash. The rest of it is, as you might expect, I mean, it's a pretty old game. It's certainly among one of the earliest kind of, console first-person games. And it was during that time when, I feel like games were much more experimental. Like, nobody knew sort of how to make a first-person game, especially one for a console. So there is some weird stuff going on with the controls and the sort of general feel, especially if you're used to playing modern first-person games.
Right.
Because if you remember, the PS1 controller didn't even have analog sticks on it when it launched. So there's no free look or anything. You're just steering yourself around with, at the time, what would have been a D-pad. And you click down one of the shoulder buttons to be able to look up and down and aim your lasers and all that, which it's a little difficult to adjust to. But fortunately, most of the time, this game is not like a white knuckle first person shooter kind of arena game. So it gives you plenty of time to react to enemies and kind of line up your shots and all that stuff. But it did present a lot of kind of unusual situations where I'd, want to strafe to the side or something, or jump up in the air and expect to be able to, swivel around in 360 degrees, which you just can't really do. So,
right, to remind yourself that hasn't been invented yet.
Yeah, exactly. So it took a little bit of mental adjustment to just figure out what is possible and what is not possible to do in this game.
You had mentioned lining up your shots. What are you shooting at?
Oh, they're just little enemies kind of patrolling around. I don't know if they're under the command of Baron Aloha or whatever, but they're more or less just video game enemies that exist to prevent you from doing what you're there to do.
Right.
But they're also amazing because they're just the most PlayStation 1 looking enemies you can imagine. They're just these huge polygons with googly eyes, and a lot of them there's a little polygon frog, and I think it's like a hippo or something that shoots missiles at you, which is just amazing. but you shoot back at them, or you can hop on them a couple times, like you would, it's just like Mario. And once they're defeated, they just explode into the exact polygons that they're built out of. So it's just this incredibly crude sort of 1995 era 3D animation, but it's very good. It was super fun coming back to a game like this.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a little surprised to see that they made a Jumping Flash 2.
They did, and maybe someday it'll come out on this PlayStation thing.
Oh, it didn't come out with it the whole... Oh, that's funny.
No, I have no idea what their plan for rolling out more of these games is, but I can only hope that they'll add more stuff later on.
I'm going to presume there is not a plan.
Yeah, that's probably more true than false. Because, you know Sony.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had a really good time with it. I was mostly able to just get over all the weird sort of bumps in the road trying to play this game. It's like, it's probably over 20 years old at this point. But it was a lot of fun. And it was also just a nice opportunity to check out this new like PS1 emulation thing that they're doing with these games. Because it's, if you remember on, I think PS3, you could just buy old PS1 games off the PSN store. I think PS3 would actually play like PS1 discs too if you just put them in the drive.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
I might be wrong, but who knows? But that's not the case with PS4. And it seems like what they've had to do is go back or what they have done anyway, is go back and refit these games to be a little more like games on the Nintendo online service. So they have like save states, and they have a couple sort of video filters. So you can have like scan lines, or you can change the size of the display on your screen and all that. And then they have a rewind, which is nice. Especially if you're, maybe struggling to adapt to 1995 era first-person shooter controls, and you make some mistakes, you can just hit the, I think it's the touchpad on the PS4?
Yes.
And it'll just pop up a menu, and you can rewind actually quite a bit, it seemed like. So maybe you want to just forget that an entire level even happened. You can probably just go all the way back to the world select screen. So it's nice to have these features, although it does worry me a little bit that it'll probably slow down the speed at which they're able to add new games to this thing if every single game has to sort of go through this process. I don't really know how involved it is.
Oh, well, while preparing them to go up for sale on this service.
Yeah, I mean, it seems slightly more involved than whatever they were doing with PS3, which I don't really know technically how that worked either, but it does seem like they're getting a little more special treatment this time around.
Yeah. The rewind thing is great. That's definitely critical, I think, for some of those old games.
Yeah. Didn't have to make too much use of it, which was nice. I mean, it's nice in that the game is mostly playable without having to rely on it, but it was always good to know that it was just available if I needed to.
Sure. It's like insurance. Better to, have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, I was glad that I was able to finally get through this entire game beyond whatever was just on that demo disc back in 1995. And, if you can get up some of the retro jankiness to it, I think it actually holds up pretty well. There are not a lot of games that are just like 3D platformers in this style that I can remember playing. In fact, it made me think a little bit of you just played that Refunked game, which is more or less just jumping from box to box and trying to figure out like, oh, which boxes do I need to jump on and which order to get to that, like whatever buttons you had to push in that game.
Right. And oh, by the way, I don't have feet, so how and where am I landing? Yes.
That one, it would have been great if they had taken some cues from Jumping Flash. But yeah, so just games in this style are few and far between. So
yeah,
bit of an oddity.
Cool. Yeah, geez, I before you mentioned it and put it on the outline tonight, I've never heard of this game. So as you were talking, I was looking at screenshots and box art, and I'm like, this is a very weird thing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely looks like a game from 1995, which, take it or leave it. Maybe it's not your thing, but I thought it was great.
I think it looks surprisingly good for a game from 1995. I think they did a pretty impressive job with one of those first 3D games ever.
Yeah. I mean, it's got such a distinctive look. I mean, a lot of 3D games from that era kind of look like this. Just everything is big and boxy, and just very simple graphics. And weirdly, I mean, a lot of games just had sort of a 2D HUD over all of them, which, I don't know, feels like a very characteristic thing back then.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm looking at the screenshots and it has like a frame around it with like all of your relevant information on it. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I never heard of this.
Yeah,
how much
it's a
was
bit
this?
of a
Did you
cult
pay for
classic.
this?
Yeah, it was like $10, which I don't know. I don't remember how much they were charging for PS1 games back on the PS3. I think it probably runs a little higher than they used to, but whatever.
Gives them room to put them on sale at some point too. Yeah.
Sure. Or, probably just they want you to subscribe to their ultra premium tier of PlayStation Plus.
Right. So the other game that I played this week is Cloud Gardens. I think you played some of this too, did you not?
I did, yeah. I dipped into a little bit of it over the weekend.
Cool. So this is, if Lumbearjack was just a toy, this is this is really just a toy. There's, it's not terribly objective driven.
I mean, you have an objective.
You do have an objective, yeah. But at some point, you have the ability to not have an objective, to just go into like art mode.
Oh yeah,
So the hook here is you have a series of kind of post-apocalyptic little dioramas, little scenarios. So it starts off pretty low scale. You've got a little plot of cement and a piece of rebar sticking out of the earth. And you move on a little further and you've got little dilapidated pieces of like highway signage or what is clearly sort of the parking lot outside of a grocery store with like a broken down car and a bunch of grocery store trolleys kind of,
right,
dinged up and splayed on the ground. And you're trying to sort of beautify, to sort of bring life back to these little post-apocalyptic looking kind of scenes. By planting flowers, by planting a series of different plants and vines and growing things to bring greenery back to this ruined little landscape.
I was going to add, like, by beautify, it's not like, oh, look how terrible, just like, look how out of hand this parking lot has gotten. We should plant things to restore it. It's more like, oh, humans are probably extinct, so nature is now going to reclaim all of these structures.
Yeah. You're not doing like beautiful like architectural landscaping. This is not the gardens at Versailles. It's
right.
Yeah. It is you don't really have a lot of control over like how things grow. You get access to different kinds of seeds and different kinds of flowers and things like that. And there's some logic through trial and error you find where you can sort of put them. But to continue to make them grow, you have to like put more garbage in the scene, which seems a little counterintuitive. But each little like piece of junk that you have access to drop into the diorama has like a little radius circle around it. And if there's anything green or growing in the radius circle, it'll make it grow just a little bit further. And you've got a little percent meter in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. You're trying to get to 100%, and that will let you move on to the next little diorama. So you get a couple of seeds, and you kind of put more junk around them, and they grow and they sprout a little bit more, and you pluck the little sprouts off of it, and you can replant some of those. And the cool thing is you bring those into the next scenario with you too. So as you're sort of progressing through it, you're getting more greenery, more garbage, more things that you can kind of use to junk up and a little bit pretty up some of these dilapidated, rundown, junky little urban landscape dioramas.
Yeah, pretty in the sense that, an old abandoned landscape, to me anyway, it looks much nicer if you just have all this greenery sort of arbitrarily growing out of parts of it.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's not Versailles, where it's like, oh, maybe if the hedge looked like this,
right,
that would be great.
You're not doing anything like that. And at some point you get a little chainsaw. And I was like, oh, maybe I could do some like sculpting. And no, you basically, you take the chainsaw to something and it just explodes into like a bunch of little leaves and flowers and petals and stuff like that. And you basically get that little piece of territory back for you to plant something new and, hope the vines grow in a direction that looks somewhat elegant and pretty. This is a game that's very much driven by its photo mode, which is you trying to sort of create these quasi-beautiful, quasi-rundown, post-apocalyptic little scenes, and then turning on the photo mode and taking kind of cute pictures to do what with, I'm not sure. But it's just a toy, a little tool, a little sandbox for you to kind of experiment with planting and trying to pretty up something that looks otherwise kind of drab and run down.
Yeah. I ended up having a pretty good time with this. I wasn't sure what to expect. I knew it was just about sort of like growing plants. But, not a huge amount of really strict gamey elements to it. You're more or less just planting things and trying not to run out of extra junk to drop nearby.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, I probably played this for a couple hours. I was having a surprisingly good time just kind of coming up with, just sort of imagining what had happened to each of these little dioramas before the level started.
Yeah.
And just trying to imagine, in this case, given, it looks like they're in the middle of a desert or something. In this one, you probably have a bunch of, cacti over in the corner here. And, maybe some ivy growing off this sign. But I would just kind of imagine backstory for each of these places as I was dropping more seeds in. Kind of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I did a little bit of that sort of like narrative construction in my brain too. There were a couple little scenes that seemed like they had a little plot in mind. There was one that I remember relatively early in, maybe an hour or so in. It's like an overturned camper.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the junk that you get to like decorate the scene are like, torn up backpacks and pieces of luggage and things like that. And I'm like, oh, there's a story here. The people were camping and the camper turned over and I don't know, maybe they were running from zombies or something like that. And all of their luggage is strewn across the road. So yeah, I was building this little diorama, but I think that's the one where I got access to the Monstera, which is kind of, this very Jurassic Park looking plant with these huge leaves. And I'm just going to put Monstera everywhere. So I was like, post-apocalyptic scene on the highway with an overturned camper with Monstera growing out of it and luggage everywhere. And yeah, I was creating a little bit of a story in my brain for what may have happened in that scenario.
Yeah. Now that you mention it, a lot of the story elements come from sort of the junk more so than the plants. But I thought it was very interesting. It's like the number of times it seemed like they would ask me to basically set up like a little patio set. So like a table and then just chairs and then a bunch of beer bottles and cans around it.
Yeah.
As if I was setting up for some humans to arrive and have a party. But I was like, I feel like either the party already happened or I don't know what is going on. It felt kind of funny. It seemed like they had specific scenes in mind for some of these.
Yeah. Yeah. As you sort of progress through all of these little scenarios, each one that you create gives you access to a series of unlockables. And then I don't know if it's the main objective, but one of the cool tools that you have access to is just basically a free mode, essentially, where you have all the stuff that you unlocked from going through the little, campaign, as it were, and going through kind of the guided scenarios. So you've got access to street signs and beer bottles and cans and the little dining set and all the luggage and things like that. And so many different types of tires.
Yeah.
All that's left at the end of the world is tires and bottles and cans.
It's like there are way more tires than there are like wheels on the number of cars you can place down. So I was just like, I don't know where these are all coming from.
Yeah. And then you can sort of build your own kind of dioramas from there, from the ground up, determining kind of what elements go into them. And now you have this giant catalog of different types of plants and plant life that you can garden into your landscaping, in addition to all of the urban junk that you got access to. I guess one of the fun things about the game is that it doesn't really, it gates those things behind your progression through the campaign, as it were, but you could also just go into the menu and hit a little button that says unlock everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you don't
I
have
noticed that, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, let me hold off on hitting that for now. We'll see how this goes.
But if you don't have the patience to make your way through the whole, guided campaign, you can just flip a switch and have access to all of the fun tools to just kind of, create and plant from the ground up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of neat. I mean, it's pretty, and it definitely feels, different from a lot of the post-apocalyptic video games I play. This is not The Last of Us kind of scenario. It's almost as if you're like a set designer on The Last of Us. It's not too hard to imagine, this being the backdrop of a video game like that. But it certainly does not present you with the kind of options and gameplay that The Last of Us does. It's more about, fun little architectural things and planting these wild gardens. Yeah, it was nice. It's neat. It's a toy. It's a tool. It's a little sandbox more than anything. It's absolutely not I don't know where I'm going with this. It's not a narrative-driven post-apocalyptic first-person shooter.
Right. I would say it leans more towards being a game than you're sort of implying. Although because I did like fail a level at one point, amazingly.
I had, and I don't know, I'm not to cut you off, sorry, but I had a weird little hiccup early on in the game. It's like the fourth or fifth step in the very early tutorials where I kept failing it too, and I couldn't figure out why. And there's no dialogue, there's no like written instructions on the screen for what to do. You're left to sort of infer from little blinking icons and the number of tools you have at your disposal. And I couldn't figure out why I was failing it. So yeah, maybe I'm contradicting myself here, but there definitely are objectives to hit as you're working your way through that main campaign. For the life of me, I could not figure out why I was failing, and I had to sort of replay it 3 or 4 times before a light bulb went off.
Oh, wait, so what was going on?
It was the whole proximity thing, is that I kept putting junk around the scene in a way that I thought kind of looked cool or looked real. It was one of the ones with the highway signs.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really about looking cool or looking real. It was about putting the junk close enough to the buds to make them bloom so that you could continue the whole process. Because if the plants if the plants don't continue to bloom, you can't complete the scene. You have to grow new seeds so that you can plant more of them. And so if you put your junk too far away, that little proximity ring doesn't trigger growth.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's what happened to me in one of the stages. Yeah. But as soon as I figured out, like, eventually they just stopped giving you objects to help plants grow. So you gotta be slightly more mindful of where you place stuff. But
it was not clear to me the first 3 times I did it.
Yeah. But even bearing that in mind, it's quite difficult to actually fail one of these levels. It's very like low pressure. For the most part, you could just place plants down wherever you want.
Yeah, and these plants grow in very bizarre circumstances. There's things that clearly look like planters that have little soil in them that you can sort of drop stuff in, but you could also grow vines on the metal side of the turned over camper in the middle of the highway if you want to. So,
that was one of my favorite things eventually, because I just decided, all the cars I see will now have one of these monsteras growing out of the roof, because I feel like that's just what should happen. And then that was like my little tradition from that point on.
Excellent. So this was kind of cool. It's kind of chill, other than that weird little friction point where I couldn't figure out why I kept failing. Once I got beyond that, I was like, this is fun. This is a cool little tool, a little toy box here to play with.
Yeah. I had a really good time with it. Just, having a chill couple of hours placing on these plants and becoming surprisingly invested, like towards the end of each little section. When you're sort of encouraged to move on, I was like, oh man, but just look how many plants I have. What if there were even more plants? And in some cases, I felt like it was prompting me to continue, and I wasn't quite done with that scene.
Oh, I had that a few times too, where I was like, don't rush me. What are you doing rushing me?
Yeah.
I'm not ready. I still have things to plant. I still have junk to place. Yeah, let me finish the scene. I did run into that a couple of times. I was like, that seems like a weird, like, structural choice.
Yeah. Plus, on some level, the dioramas are just so cool to look at afterwards, because it is some like fairly recognizable scenario of like a highway or a convenience store or whatever, but it is just overrun by just foliage.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. There's some fun physics to the stuff that you drop into the scenario too. So like the tires will kind of like, will bounce and roll if you drop them from too high. Beer bottles will fall over and knock over other bottles and stuff like that. You don't really have a lot of fidelity in kind of how you place things.
Yeah.
So I was doing a lot of like a little like physics experimentation to see like, can I hang a tire from the little piece of metal sticking out of the highway sign? And you can undo it when you fail something. So I kept, I would go through 3 or 4 attempts to try to like drop it in just the right way so that somebody would pass by and go, how did the tire get up on the highway sign?
Yeah. Did you do it? Did you get the tire on there?
I did. Yeah, I was able to do it quite a few times. Yeah.
Oh, good. Excellent.
It felt like the sneakers hanging from the electrical wire kind of scenario where it's like, how did that get up there? So yeah, it was fun. It's again, it's just this weird little fun thing to kind of play around with, kind of experiment with. And I like that it had the unnecessary addition of a weird little physics engine to be able to kind of play with and exploit.
Did you do the stage where it was like, it was a big dumpster and you essentially just fill it with washing machines and refrigerators and these huge boxy appliances?
That does sound familiar, yes.
Okay, yeah, that was a lot of fun. So as soon as I realized, like, oh, I just get to build a huge Jenga tower out of refrigerators on this one. This will be good.
I like the there was a subway station one that had like a train car and stuff like that. That was cool.
Oh, I don't think I got to that one yet.
Oh, I remember really going hard on that one. That was one of the bigger ones. There were ones too that I really like that were, they give you a little piece of a scenario where you have like 2 little parking spaces and a piece of like rebar and, a stop sign or something like that. And as you sort of approach 100% for that little scene, rather than moving you on to the next separate scenario, another little piece of the parking lot will sort of emerge from the clouds.
Yeah, I like those.
And your scene has doubled in size at that point, which is kind of fun. And you get to, grow the thing that you were working on rather than having to start over from scratch.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. They really contributed to just sort of the narratives I was coming up with in my head.
The first time one of those popped up, I was like, "Ooh, cool!" Yeah, so it's it's fun. It's a neat little thing. I'm glad we discovered this and had a chance to play around with it. Yeah. So this is out for a bunch of stuff. It's on PlayStation already. It came out quite a while ago on PC. It has just recently come out for the Switch, which is where I played it.
Nice.
Where did you play it?
I played it on Steam.
Cool. So yeah, this is called Cloud Gardens, I had fun with it. Would recommend.
Yeah, it's a good way to just spend a few hours relaxing over the weekend.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Just I wonder, like on Steam, what's the word I'm looking for? Like can you create little HD screenshots? Are there some like computer wallpaper backgrounds you could manufacture from this?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I took some screenshots. I actually forgot to look at them after I finished playing, but there were a few dioramas I was particularly pleased with. I was like, oh, I want to save this one probably. I didn't get completely like all the way into it because I know there are a bunch of settings in the photo mode. Like you can mess around with the lighting. They have a bunch of cool different color palettes you can play with. And I certainly didn't get into the free mode stuff because I just thought, oh, this is going to eat up the rest of my afternoon if I get into this. But there's just something about seeing the dioramas after you've completed each level. You're just like, oh, maybe I would like this like on my desktop or like hanging on my wall or something. It's kind of this weird visual.
Cool. Yeah. All right. So I think that's it, right? That's all the video games we promised for this week.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I'm going to go track down a copy of Jumping Flash 2.
If you need, do you have a machine that will run PS1 games?
I've got my PS3 somewhere around here.
Oh, that's right.
That should work.
Cool. If you need any more video game hangover in your brain, you should follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/VGHangover. And you can always get show notes and links and tell us what you thought about this episode at VGHangover.com. We would love for you to join us on Discord. You can hang out with us and chat about video games. And what else are we talking about this week? Mountain Dew. A lot of Mountain Dew chat this week.
Oh, no.
And a number of other fun things. So head over to VGHangover.com for an invite to our Discord. We would love, for you to subscribe, rate, and review us on your podcasting app of choice. Hook us up, tell your friends about the show. That's a big help, and we would appreciate it immensely.
Yeah. One of the best ways, or one of the few ways that people actually hear about the show, just through word of mouth. So that is a huge help. We would like to give thanks again to Saria Lemus this week for our intro and outro music. If you'd like to hear more, you can go to pettypanol.bandcamp.com and listen to the rest of her discography. Maybe buy all of it. Maybe some of it, or just all of it. Go with all of it. How about?
Yeah, that's the way to do it. Just go crazy. All right, we'll be back next week. I don't know what are we doing? We should figure that out. I got to figure out what I'm going to play for next week.
Oh, you're not going to want to miss next week.
The all 80s movie episode.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Yeah, all Patrick Swayze.
All right, we'll be back in 7 days. Until then, this is Randy Dickinson.
This is DJ Ross.
Thanks so much for listening to Video Game Hangover. Good night.
Good night.
See ya.